Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and welcome everyone in the podcast of BIM Talks. I am actually really glad that I can participate in talking with you, Hassan. Just a couple of sentences and then a quick introduction from me. I'm coming from an architectural background. I used to be a designer architect, and I was specialized on single-family homes. And it was right after the crisis has ended, so I went through a lot of small projects, designing small dwellings, small building, family houses, and at some point I decided to move forward in the career and became a part of a governmental institution which just launched their architectural office. That architectural office was mainly focusing on governmental projects, and not just the projects, but also it was one of the research labs for certain types of projects in the Hungarian area. So we were assigned a couple of historical buildings preservations, and we had to test out a couple of new scenarios, how to measure and how to capture real life data. And that was the way how I was dragged into laser scanning and how to utilize laser scanning data into design applications and how we can create proper documentation of it. So that was my part of the journey, which started to a few years ago, around 5 or 6. And slowly I became a manager in the company, and we had a couple of survey projects, design projects as well. And from that point, I moved to Graphisoft, and now I'm a senior BIM consultant in the professional services team. So in Graphisoft, the past 3 years, I've been working for different departments, and those departments were covering different areas of the industry. I started in ArchiCAD implementation team and then moved to learning and certification team, which were responsible for developing trainings and certifications. And now I'm in the professional services team, where we mostly focus on consultancy and these aspects of the industry to help out our channel partners, also for the customers. So this is my journey in quickly. Also, there was one thing that was going through my previous job and my actual job is the standardization, because I joined the standardization committee of work in 2017 from my previous company. As you probably know, in 2016, end of 16, there was a standardization committee established in the European level called SAN-TC 442. This committee is responsible for BIM standardization in the whole European level. And in 2017, one of the first joiners as Hungary, we stepped into the game and started helping out the committees, also created our mirror committee, the Hungarian one, and from since this point, I'm part of the delegation, also participating in standardization committee meetings and also helping in the translation and adoption of European standards and also ISO standards to Hungarian.
Thank you very much, Sabi. Thank you very much for taking actually the moderator role today. We had, some technical issues. For some reason, our camera last moment froze, and I had to go with my computer camera here. So in that way, I had to you had to introduce yourself without even my moderation thing. But today we should have actually in place the Pantelis as well as another guest. He's working in partner with Sabi. But the problem is that Pantelis, again, these are live talks, so these kind of things unfortunately happen. And Pantelis, we are so sorry because Pantelis' daughter is sick and he's in hospital right now, so he didn't manage to join. But like Sabi and Pantelis last year, if I'm not wrong, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but they got an award from Graphisoft, being like one of the for BIM consultation and on the BIM management side, being the best in the customer success. Is this correct? Can you tell us a little bit about that award, Sabi?
Yeah, just before, let me introduce a bit Pantelis here, because I think we should put the credits for Pantelis as well. So Pantelis Ioannidis is the manager of professional services team. He is also a former BIM manager. He and also worked for other companies in the UK. He's been living for a few years there, and he was also part of the NBS group, and he had a couple of projects there and moved on to a 100 plus company where he was the BIM manager. And he's also licensed architect. And a couple of years ago, he also joined Graphisoft and started taking on projects. And now he's leading the professional services team in there. We've got two main responsibilities now in this team to help the field and teach people the BIM management. So this is the BIM Manager program that you are maybe familiar with, or if you've never heard it, please look after it. And the other one is the professional services consulting parts that we are doing. Pantelis and then I put a lot of effort last year to move digital, because the pandemic hit so hard as we had this training, the BIM Manager training. It was a 5-day training, 40 hours consecutive days. It was a really tiring one, and we moved the whole program to a 10-week online training, and not just only adapting the classroom parts, but they try to make it more interactive and try to make it the new standard how to deliver trainings. It included a couple of updations. Also, we built a learning management system. We invested in green screen studios to make it more high-end and cutting edge, the delivery. And last year, Graphisoft honored our work, and we were the Learn Innovators of the Year. And this was the prize that we both received, which was a great honor.
No, I mean, I think you deserved it, because I mean, as a practicing BIM manager, I have been like practicing it for many years now, but I'm always looking for like any tip in the, even from a book, from a learning course, from anywhere, is affecting our career. So we need to understand that mindset. Therefore, I also joined that program for 10 weeks, and I met Szabi and Pantelis there, and you really did a great approach, because one of the things that your course focused is, what I liked is that you focus on the mindset. You focus so much on the understanding and appreciation of what kind of benefits and how they can really use it in order to get the maximum potential output in BIM, and then moving on the technical side, which is obviously Graphisoft BIM management program, which went a little bit on the management of ArchiCAD. But that is one of the, I think, like one of the reasons that we are doing the BIM talks in the industry, is that we want to push the industry. We want to change the mindset. I did a research recently, a study, and which is going to be published in a month or two. And in the study, it's analyzed that this industry is saying they are not requiring any more soft BIM skills. But on the contrary, there is an output that about 65% of the people saying they are lacking motivation for change. So can you explain a little bit about that? So how do you embrace when they lack motivation for change, how you are embracing that, how you're motivating people to move towards BIM?
Yes, I guess your point is really spot on, because whenever a new change is coming into picture, or when you need to face something new, it's really hard to embrace it, because what you can think of very first is the risks that for example, if it's a change in a workplace, a lot of risks are coming into picture, and if you cannot really evaluate the benefits of changing the job, it's really hard to step forward. And what we found out that during these years, that technology is there. So if you're talking about particularly BIM or any kind of adoption, we cannot just focus really on BIM. It can be anything else. The fear of new and the fear of the new things is one of the most so the fear of the new things is the blocker of stepping forward in a lot of cases. And mostly behind this fear is the lack of understanding, is the main reason. You cannot really understand all the aspects and how things are going to happen. You are not sure that it can be moved forward. So that's why people people often just remain at positions, and or companies remain at old habits, old workflows. And how to embrace it? I guess the answer is pretty simple, but the execution is hard. That you need to analyze a lot of things. You need to analyze your business. You need to analyze yourself. Create lists. What are the benefits, pros and cons, and ask yourselves if you want to change. Because if you would ask a lot of people that who wants change, almost everyone will raise the hand that, okay, I want change. But what happens if someone says, okay, but for change, you need to change first in a lot of cases, and who wants to be changed? Then that's the question. And a lot of guys who just raise the hand, they just disappear, because it's not that something is going to happen out of yourself. You need to be involved. You need to be part to understand the whole process. And I think that's the most important point here, that you need to embrace yourself and prepare for the change. And if you can do that, it's pretty easy to move forward.
No, very well said. I 100% agree with you. And one of the things that what you said is right, because when we say who wants to change, like who wants to do the push, the people doesn't want to take the extra effort to do the push. But the main problem over here is that people see BIM only as a tool, only as a software, and that is a problem, because BIM is actually a business value. So you need to look at it from the business value point of view in order to understand what kind of benefits it can bring. Apart from making it more productive, there are multi-layer of benefits. Obviously, there are different layers apart from the business layer, like ISO 19650 says. But the main issue over here is that if the people start understanding it as a more like a business addition to the business quality, the change will happen more frequently, because the top management will understand that, okay, it's a business thing, it adds additional value to the business, it will push us forward in the industry, we will be doing better projects, higher quality, and deliver faster, and it's worth for investment because it will give a competitive advantage, as well as we will do the quality that the client's looking for. So I think one of the good things in the course that you managed to go over detail about it and some techniques. That's a really good point. And can you tell us a little bit more about, you said you were participating in a committee and doing some kind of participation in the standards. Can you tell us a little bit more about what are the standards right now and what kind of your participations brought into the standards? Can you go into detail a little bit on that aspect?
Yes, sure. I guess let's just start with some myth busting around standards, because when someone hears standards, just runaways immediately. Often people think of standards are really dry materials, and it's for someone who is on a high level, and it's sometimes really hard to understand them as well. But standards are, in a lot of cases, they're there to protect the consumers. So that's why we implement, and not just in the field of BIM. If you just think of, for example, normal electrical appliances. When you buy something, for example, a hairdryer, what you want is that whenever you plug it into the socket, you are not going to burn down the house. You just want to dry your hair, right? And to be able to confirm this protection level, there has to be standards applied to ensure that the quality, what you are going to buy at some point, is going to meet the requirements of a country, of the union, of the world. So that's why a lot of ISO standards are coming into quality. Also, there's the CE marks for importing stuff from external countries, which may or which they don't really have these well-defined standards, just to protect the consumers. And in this case, when we talk about BIM standards, we are consumers as well, both from the client side. The client is going to invest a lot of money in the project when a lot of data is going to be produced. And also, the designers are going to invest a lot of time and effort just to create this. And since all of the projects needs to be done in a really quickly manner, the time frames are shorter and shorter. We need to effectively communicate, and we need to have a background which helps us to ensure that everything is going to be right at the moment. And 2016, end of 2016, the BIM standardization just stepped one thing ahead because they established this committee. And what we try to do in the first years is to dig out all those standards that can be relevant for us. So we didn't start anything from scratch. We didn't think of a new thing, what is BIM, or we didn't rethought everything that now you know what was BIM and now we are going to create something totally different. We started digging out all the existing standards or existing good practices that we can take over and started creating our own packages. We created different work groups focusing on different areas of the BIM standardization. And the first step was collecting these standards and republish it or realign it according to our actual needs. And it's pretty simple. We've got a couple of ones. So let me just highlight, for example, the IFC standard. The IFC standard was there. It has an ISO coding as well. It's an ISO standard. What we did is we took it because the European Standardization Committee decided that the IFC file format is going to be the basis for the BIM standardization in the European level. Also, we were looking for best practices around the world, and a lot of European countries has already developed certain standards. And these standardization bodies had a couple of meetings to harmonize them. And we used a lot of materials from the UK standards, namely the PAS 1192 series, and also other series that are coming from different countries. And the good thing is about standardization is that there is a committee full of experts, and they try to provide a consensus at the time when the standards are developed. So what we are looking for is industry experts finding the common ground. So it's not just one country is pushing something. If there is an opposition, we need to sort it out. And that's how the ISO 19650 series came into picture. We just started creating it, taking those beneficial things from the past 1192 series and also from other standards that may have effect on information management in this process. So basically what we started doing is collecting all the good studies, and also on top we started creating new standards which we were not satisfied with. I saw that Hassan, you had Marcia Bolpani participated in previous BIM talks, and she initiated another group, the level of information need work group, to create a standard which is totally redefining the understanding of a level of details, level of geometry, level of information, and how this topic should be approached with the level of information need standard. And now it's already out there. So with steps that consensus, with a lot of consensus around different countries, we are trying to issue those materials that we think is necessary to start a BIM project.
I mean, I really admire that the effort is, I mean, like, people don't see from the background how much effort it's taking, how much discussions and how much research is being applied to those creation of those standards. So, and that's one of the, another thing is the difficulty is that many companies, I mean, especially in US, because our practice is mostly dominated in US, and it's very hard for us to convince people to focus on the standards, and they don't understand the beneficial of having universal standards rather than having bits of pieces of individual BIM standards all around, which was one of the issues Marcia was having in her PhD, and where she was like struggling all these LOX, LOG, LOI, LOD, and so forth. So it's, I mean, I think this is really a great improvement for the industry. Can you tell me a little bit more about Graphisoft's approach towards OpenBIM? Because it's, I really want to understand a little bit more about, I think it's important for us because you know that the market is dominated by one vendor, and Graphisoft is really trying to push in order to bring a lot of value to the market. So can you tell us a little bit about how Graphisoft is focusing on the OpenBIM approach and standardization and workflow?
Yes, sure. So the very first thing which comes into mind when OpenBIM starts spreading is that even though the market has a dominance in certain ways on software vendors. There are a lot of local markets when local markets develop local tools for specific purposes. And in this case, it's really hard to communicate with something, some software, for example, which is dedicated for being compliant with one standard for example, structural engineering that is providing the best output in the fastest way. But at the end, these companies were left out from big projects because if they didn't use one software package or another software package, they just couldn't compete. And I guess this is the key here, that OpenBIM is basically providing you flexibility, that you don't need to invest in other solutions, in other methods to learn. You can use your own software tools. You can use your own methods, how you are actually working. And what you need to take care of is to translate your actual work into a common language, which is the IFC file format. This is the main file format, digital storage for the OpenBIM workflows. And if you can ensure this connection, then you are most likely covered in all of the aspects. So even though you are a small company who cannot really afford buying the most expensive tools, but you are good at the work that you are doing, you have the opportunity to join in and provide good quality material. And also in Graphisoft, we try to put a lot of focus on implementing and pushing forward the industry. We are part of the Building Smart development groups who are actually responsible for advising and rolling forward the IFC developments. And we are in the forefront of this development. So we are pushing, trying to implement new things, trying to make things much faster. So we are actually in the development of IFC, of course, with the other companies, and they have to, or we have to actually be in arguments and agreements that everyone is approving. And when it's done, we can just move forward with the development itself. So our goal is to spread the OpenBIM initiative, because we believe in open workflows, we believe in transparent workflows, and we believe in that all the tools should be used on the purpose that they are designed for.
Okay, so in that case, I mean, I would like to ask this question, and I think you expect that it's coming as well. So what about when we talk about Graphisoft and domination of the vendor and OpenBIM, we need to discuss about Revit, right? So the Revit is dominating the industry, has been like dominating industry for many years because of the AutoCAD and all this marketing approach, aggressive marketing approach for many years. And how, I mean, like, I believe Graphisoft is seeing OpenBIM as a unique approach, an important approach for the industry, because one vendor is dominating it, and if there is a more like if the industry becomes more vendor independent, and now people will focus on products that suit them best rather than focusing on the vendor directly, because of the vendor is very good in marketing, right? So when it comes to Revit and ArchiCAD, obviously I know that you are representing Graphisoft, but if you look from an objective point of view, could you tell us where ArchiCAD potentially lacking and needs to be strengthened and gets better on that aspect, and where it's very powerful?
Yes, this is a good question, and you can see a lot of comparison videos if you go around in the internet, and you can read a lot of opinions on both sides. I guess there are fans on both sides of the softwares. So basically, it's really hard to give objective points. Because there is no objective points in this equation. Everyone is looking in subjectively. So what I guess is the two software, if we are focusing on the software, is focusing on a bit different areas of the whole design workflows and all the stages that they can go through. And in certain things and certain parts, one is more powerful than the others, and in other stages, the other software is more powerful, or not more powerful. It's working a bit differently, but more effective. I guess as a Graphisoft employee, I cannot say anything else that our software is the best, of course, but But I guess the main point is here just to look for the purpose, look for why or what you want to deliver and how you want to reach it, because that is going to answer the question which tool you are going to pick at the end. So there are pros and cons. You can have this objective list, but it doesn't really matter if you are a so design focused office that you need a certain tool which is only available in ArchiCAD, and you are going to build up all your workflows and processes on that one particular element. It doesn't matter if the rest of the industry is going to use another software. You are going to use that because that's good for you, and you are going to face the other challenges. But it can be another way around. So it's probably not the best tool for your production, but the rest of the industry is using that. So you are going to sacrifice productivity and freedom on the altar of interoperability or communication flows with the others. And I guess where you put the line, it's up to the office. So I think this is the all-time question, that you are going to suffer from one part or from another part. You are going to have problems because you are dealing with complex projects, that's for sure. And where your risks or where you have the line, or what kind of problems do you want to deal is the question at the end.
Absolutely. And Thomas, just in the comments, he was saying Revit is not anymore dominating and ArchiCAD is picking up more and more. Is this, I mean, from your point of view, is this true?
Yes, definitely. We can see markets when we are number one. So, of course,
Switzerland.
Hungary, of course. I can say that because of the language and because of the development, of course, Hungary is ruling. I mean, of course, that's something that's so obvious. But not just this, there are other markets which we are leading, or there are markets which we are in second place.
Can you mention them? Can you mention them? Few of them, like which
unfortunately. Unfortunately, cannot mention those. I can say Hungary is one of those in the Harley 5%, but the rest is unfortunately not public data.
Okay, all right. I mean, I said Switzerland because we do a lot of projects there, and then I know that the industry is mainly looking for that side of the technical authoring BIM tools. One of the things over here is actually not creating a debate. You're right. We cannot create a debate what is better and what is not, which is better tool. As you said, it should be for the purpose. So that's what we are talking about all the time. It should be mindset. The tools should not drive us how to use them. We should have a mindset. We should have a process, and then we should use the tools to get maximum out of the BIM and the workflow. So in that aspect, where do you think ArchiCAD, in what processes, or what is the most powerful part of ArchiCAD? Can you tell us a little bit on that?
Can you please repeat, Hassan, because you were breaking up a bit, so I couldn't really catch the last sentence.
All right, sorry. Maybe there was some kind of lack of some kind of connection problem. So the here is that we don't want to create a debate between ArchiCAD and Revit users. You know that we are more towards Revit, and we also participated a lot of BIM courses from Graphisoft, and we do deliver ArchiCAD services as well. But the question over here is that it's not about which is better tool, but to understand really and truly where ArchiCAD can kick in a lot and where it's very powerful. So can you just tell me a little bit on those aspects?
Yes. I guess, again, the question comes back to the purpose again, but there are certain areas which ArchiCAD is really excelling. And these parts are typically the early stages of the design, when you need a lot of freedom, and when you need to come up with a lot of different variations, integrations, for example, with parametric designs, with Rhino Grasshopper, connection with integrated parts. So whenever you create, for example, a Rhino Grasshopper code of a high-rise building, which is really unique one, and you want to transfer it to a BIM model, because at the end of the project or at certain stages, you need to deliver BIM deliverables. This is one thing which is really flawless in ArchiCAD. Also, there are opportunities in ArchiCAD to integrate with other solutions because of this OpenBIM initiative, and we can accept a lot of incoming pre-made objects that is available on the market. So there is a huge library around that you can just bring in, and you can use it for further parts. The documentation part, the documentation capabilities of ArchiCAD is again really powerful. You can be compliant with the standards. You can you can create a lot of different deliverables coming from ArchiCAD with a single click, and also you can detail out things pretty much it's hard to say in the LOD level or hard to say in the scale level, but whatever is considered as 1:20, 1:5 scale, or also in LOD 350, LOD 400 again. ArchiCAD is really flexible and is pushing those limits for modeling and being able to deliver these freedom to the architects who are designing the projects.
We do have a BIM news series in our YouTube channel, and there I was like also exploring a lot of news from the different vendors and how they're approaching. And I saw that ArchiCAD is actually bringing a tool. It already brought a tool into it with the newest ArchiCAD, and it's like something like Dynamo for Revit. You are obviously, it's not going for documentation side yet, I believe, and other like as it's not as complex or detailed as Dynamo yet. But from the geometry side, I think it became quite powerful and useful. Some touches of Grasshopper, I believe. And how is the reaction from the Graphisoft user? Can you tell us a little like shortly on that part?
Yes, this new feature of us is called Paramo, which is our built-in tool for creating parametric objects within ArchiCAD. Previously, it was available to create custom objects with modeling and saving them as some kind of objects. But when you wanted to create parametrization, so for example, there is a shelf system that is expanding according to certain rules, or there are some bindings which is set for one point. So for example, if this point is meeting one requirement, this and this and that things should happen with the object. It was still possible, but you had to find a developer, a GDL developer. The GDL is the language our software is using for object making. And Paramo, what actually did is try to ease the pain of creating these custom parametric objects, because as you said, in a node-based interface, you can just drag and drop boxes, connect those connections, and with some multipliers, sliders, or any input that you can find out in a mathematical algorithm, when you create this sequence, like you just said in Dynamo or in Grasshopper, at the end, you are going to be able to create a parametric object. And this does not require coding. And at the background, it's going to create a proper code. So this is a well-received feature. We had to wait for a bit for Macintosh users as well, but now it's available for Windows and Macintosh users as well. So the customers are really liking it, and we are waiting for a lot of good experience and good objects that were created from this amazing tool. So I guess it's going to be rolling forward. We constantly develop it, so it's not just it's a stop project. We put a lot of new functions in every update into ArchiCAD, so it's going to be hopefully at a level that Grasshopper and Dynamo can deliver at now.
Actually, it's we can also say it for the people who are not familiar with the product. It's a visual programming, so you don't have to know coding. It's already coded boxes. You just connect the logic into each other, and then it functions accordingly. So if people are knowing Grasshopper and Dynamo, most probably they will be able to understand what we are talking about. So one thing that I would like to discuss over here is that obviously this is, and after that we will be discussing a few things about like do's and don'ts and the best approaches and the practices for BIM. But before that, and the future of BIM, how we are seeing it. But before that, I would like to understand the because why people are choosing, one of the main reasons people are choosing Revit is that people want a, you know, like generic process. For example, we do a lot of fabrication, you know, like offsite manufacturing. So where Revit is very powerful on those because we can create individual parameter set families, very complex one with a lot of values, and it can get to the shop easily, like very fast, and it can be very fast. We can do the production extremely fast. When it comes to ArchiCAD, from my because I'm not a real ArchiCAD user, so in that case I can only say from the external point of view, I see ArchiCAD is very powerful when it comes to architectural design and representation, because as you said, documentation for architects, you are even showing some in some parts how you do the damp-proof membrane and how it goes, and you're drawing it, which is very difficult actually to draw something like this in Revit, and a lot of effort it takes. And I saw that how it's easy in ArchiCAD. And I saw the power over there. But how, when it comes to offsite manufacturing or some more complex processes, how do you find ArchiCAD? Can you tell me a little bit on that?
Yes, we can. Of course, we can do the very same, or we have the very same functionality as Revit has. I guess the different approach between those two things, that again, it's coming from one vendor which is providing multiple solutions for multiple cases, because whenever you create these fabrications and documentations, you're not using only one software. You are going to move it from one to another, which at the end is going to produce, for example, the CNC machine is going to cut the holes in the material at the end. ArchiCAD is still capable of delivering this. Also, it's still capable of delivering the very same detail. But what we found often that the manufacturers themselves, they are against these new methodologies, this new open technique, which is really hard not hard actually, which is, for them, it's a different step which they need to step forward in this game. And sometimes this is the hard part, not because ArchiCAD is not capable, but the other receiving end is not going to accept what we can produce in the form what we do actually, because they are used to work in another way. And whenever this business, or whenever this market can open up for a more transparent and more open communication, like using IFCs or using any other open formats, that this gap is going to be breached pretty easily. Just one example, that imagine that if all of the vendors would provide different file format for instruction manuals, instead of providing a PDF. And for each and every instruction manual, you need to download the local solutions to be able to open it. Of course, this is a different aspect of the life, but at the end, everyone is now using PDF for documentations for certain things. And hopefully, when the manufacturers and the industry is stepping forward, that instead of creating 2D documentations and creating DWGs, creating PDFs as the outputs, but from that point, they are starting taking in models, this won't be an issue anymore.
We will be talking about BIM career and lessons learned, but before that, can you tell me your point of view for the future of BIM and industry, how it's going to move forward?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question. And I don't know what's going to happen, but what I can see in the trends, that BIM, building information modeling, started shifting daily, basically. So what we used to think of BIM 2 years ago and what we think of BIM now is changed. It's different. Building 5 years ago was only related to buildings, but I mean actual houses. But when we think of building itself, now infrastructure is under this term. So I think it's going to broaden. So we are going to be more productive and collaborative with infrastructures, with tunnels, with bridges, with all the other stakeholders who are providing some kind of models, who are in the construction industry, but actually in a more broader environment. Also, because this whole thing is evolving, modeling is not going to be the right term. And I hope that sooner or later we are going to change the modeling word to management, because the whole thing is about managing information. And if that information is a 2D information or 3D information, it doesn't really matter, but we need to manage this information. So I hope, and I guess, in a couple of years, there will be more BIM managers, more information managers who are going to deal with all sorts of data regarding if it's like 2D, 3D, as I said, or some kind of other contractual documentations which should be linked into somehow into models. This management approach should be coming forward in the upcoming years to be able to handle the current situation, because it's now really messy, and that's what BIM managers do, try to clean up the whole thing and try to standardize things.
Absolutely. And I think we need to look from this perspective rather than saying building information modeling. Here, the building word is a building. Maybe we might look from this perspective that it's a creating, like creating something. So creating information modeling, right? So where we are actually, rather than focusing on, like whether it is something constructible, it could be any industry actually. It could be from the industrial zone. It could be for oil sector. It could be anything. It could be under water system. Now they are trying to do new projects, multi-billion projects. They try to like dig tunnels and make paths, and very, very different projects, right? So if we think about building information modeling, creating information and like creating information, modeling, and modeling word, we can divide it into three. Basically, I have been discussing also in my publication that it's like modeling, and management. So they have three processes. It has a product itself, where the one source of truth on information being shared, the process of creating it, and then there's a management part of it where you manage all the information. Can you tell me a little bit about learned lessons in your BIM career, and what advices would you give to our audience?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That now, just to reflect back to your last point, modeling and management. I think it's a great creation of the M's there, because each participant is looking for different parts of this. Someone is doing the model, someone is modeling, and someone is managing informations, and that's right in this case. So what is my takeover, or what is my summary on my career? I guess what I really liked about how I transitioned from understanding how the whole industry is working currently, and the lack of management of information affected the quality of the projects, and how the delivery was done, with all the all-nighters, with all the problems that occurred because of the lack of communications and because of not standardized workflows. I guess this is one of the key points that I'd like to highlight here, that if you can focus and put energy into establishing proper communication lines, establish proper standardized ways of doing this, and also how you are going to manage information, and how you are going to assure and ensure that the information is at the right place in the right form, that can bring a huge benefit at the end. As an architect, I never thought of quality assurance and quality control, because what I thought, the quality assurance and quality control should be the responsibility of the lead designer. And what he did in a lot of situations, he just checked on 2D papers, redlining a couple of stuffs. He was already loaded with contracts and a lot of things. And if he slipped something, it was a problem. And probably 1 or 2 months later, we just found out that this column, this wall is in the wrong place. We need to move it. If they already started erecting it, they had to demolish it. So it's a huge waste of energy, time, and a lot of things. So if we can just focus on much more ensuring our quality is in the right place, and we can control the whole process. I guess the right word is controlling, that everything is in your hands. You know what are the things happening. You are not just in the flow and swimming around just looking for answers. That's the whole point of doing this, I guess. And that's my revealing and my findings in my career, that if you can control things, your life is going to be much easier.
Very well said. And I definitely agree with you that if you control the management of the information and where you do proper review sections, where you in your system, good supply chain, solid supply chain, where you can evaluate and actually use the data as an information and powerful thing, because BIM, we know that now BIM can deliver us data, right? BIM, if you just model one wall, you will have a bunch of data in your already, if you know, in your sheets, in your schedules, and so forth. Now the time is now, it has to change that in thinking, not how to create that wall, but how to use the data in a powerful way that can bring much more benefits. So I would like to discuss with you a little bit about the BIM management program that you're offering. We mentioned it in the beginning of the session, but can you tell us how it evolved so far since I participated, and how it's going to evolve in the future, and how it's going actually forward? Because I think my participation was about a year or so ago. So, which was the first time was it the first time that it became digital? I think one of the first times it became digital.
Yes, exactly. So we are keeping this program digital because we found out that so much information, what we deliver, and it's so condensed. This is the right format because people have time to digest, time to ask questions, time to look behind things, do their own research. And I think this is one of the key benefits to start to make people think of certain things. The BIM Manager program is not really focusing on the tool itself, but rather workflows. So what we are providing in this program is not how you can model things, how you can solve problems in ArchiCAD or in other softwares. What we try to teach is how to think out of box, how to try to solve those workflow problems that are always occurring, and what are your basic options to do that. And I guess this is trying to think as a BIM manager during the whole project, trying to put together and combine all the different risks and aspects. Because just a simple example, if you let someone to model a wall in a certain way, which affects 3 other colleagues, probably that one guy is going to be satisfied with the end result, but the 3 guys are not. And in the end, you need to solve this issue. One guy is satisfied, 3 are not. That's not the good case. We try to connect all the links that you might actually know or you have heard of things, but those small gaps are missing. Just what are the connections between different workflows and things. And now how we improved this course, we constantly develop the materials. Since new standards, for example, are coming in, we have 2 new standards, the ISO 19650 part 3 and part 5 issued. And this is a whole different approach than we used to teach. So in the past year, we redefined these sections, re-recorded to be able to compliant with this ISO standards. Also, regarding life cycle BIM, we've got a couple of other sections which needs to be discussed, just because new standards are coming in. So we are constantly looking the actual industry, what is changing, and how should we change things accordingly. In the future, the program is going to go on. We started localizing them. So the original program was for English language only, and during this year we have translated to 6 languages. So you may find your own.
So you learned six languages?
No, not us. We've got trainers who are certified for being conducting this training, and also we've got the Spanish, the Hungarian, Brazil, and Italian coming, yeah. German coming, Japanese is already on the way. So we are developing further this market. So instead of reaching for those communities that can understand English and can learn in English, we are trying to be local and trying to provide the same experience with local trainers, with local flavors, and issue the same certificate at the end, just to educate the whole industry.
I thought that after you got the award, I said, okay, he learned 6 more languages so he can do more support to the local industries. But
No, that's not the case. It would be nice if I could learn 6 languages in such a short
sure,
time.
yeah. Absolutely. And so in a second, we will jump into QA session. So whatever questions you have, please populate them in the chat box. We will try to answer as much as we can. But before that, we will get do's and don'ts advice from Sabi, so he can tell us what to do with BIM and what not to do with BIM. And can you tell us a little bit on that?
Do's and don'ts. I guess this is going to be really subjective. So please do not get any advice from me. This is, I think, just my gatherings. Do standardize, do control, and make sure that everyone understands the reason behind. Simple example, if people understand, or the office understands why things are regulated, why they don't have access to certain things, and they know what is going to happen after that, they will understand, and most likely they will help you in the later processes. I think clear communication is, again, one of the key things, that you should be transparent. What are you doing as a BIM manager, as a project lead, as an architect? Because if you're hiding information, purposely or not purposely, it is going to exaggerate things which you don't really like at the end. And I guess this is one of my may do's. Don'ts. That's a good question. What do not do? I guess anything can be done until the point that it's not hurting the other participants. I guess do not do CAD. Just do BIM at the end.
Very well said, actually. And I would just add a little flavor on that, what you said. One of the don'ts that you shouldn't do, so is this narrowing your mindset. Try to be open-minded, because if you narrow your mind and you don't want change, obviously, again, change, there are different, there are reasons for age, there are reasons for, like career, there are reasons like direct and indirect because of your organization level, or, like your peer level or peer relationship. There might be a multitude of reasons, your skill set and so forth, but try to be open-minded. And you can, if you start, if you say no to yourself all the time, you will be left behind. Instead, try to understand a little bit more how you can use it, or how it can bring benefit. If you don't want too much effort, you can do a lot of BIM without too much effort as well. So try to focus on exactly what you need, try to understand what you need, learn more, rather than just saying, I don't want BIM, or I don't want that, or I just want CAD. Because if you do something like this in your career, and question yourself how much you can go forward in your career and in your life. So this would be my personal subjective advice as well. So let me look at any questions that are arising. One of the questions that I'm seeing over here is that for archiving. So can you tell us a little bit about archiving? And because I presume the question is more about when you are done with the project, and let's say we did a new construction and it's not going to be used for the next 5-10 years, maybe 20 years for renovation. And I believe, because they were like, in the comment was, the problem with whole BIM, I find, is all the work we do end up in archive storage. So I presume if you don't go facility management approach with BIM, yes, if you just have the project and put it into archive and not look at it, you can go with that approach. But maybe Sabi can tell me a little bit more about how, for example, if you model in from the Nemetschek group with ArchiCAD, there in Nemetschek group, there's another software for facilities management, how we can take that model and use this in asset and facilities management. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. We can approach this topic in a lot of directions, and if we can expand it also to any other softwares, because I believe that archiving should be done through an open format all the time. Because if you close a format, at some point the software vendor who is developing that file format is deciding what's going to be the afterlife of that file format. If you are going to use, for example, one software, for example, ArchiCAD, and you created a file 15 years ago, you most likely have to go through certain steps to be able to open it in the current versions. If you've done it in Revit 10 years ago, you have some sort of problems, I believe, that you need to face when you open it. And I guess regarding archiving, we always go for open source formats. First thing is PDF. Again, I really like this example because PDF files, if you receive a PDF file now, or if you are going to open a 20-year-old PDF file received back in the age, you won't have any problem to open it, right? Because it's coming from an open source background, and no one is really changing the source code after it. You are going to open the PDF documentation, the plans. And when we talk about BIM models, there is only one file format which can be used for archiving if we are considering all the steps. It is the IFC file. It doesn't really matter who is producing that IFC file, which vendor, because IFC was the first development of IST started in 1994, and by 1996 they issued the very first version. So basically, if you get an IFC file coming from 1995 or 1996, from 96, sorry, you will be able to open it in any of the IFC viewers that is on the market. Because this is open source, the data scheme and the data structures didn't change much, and it's not going to change so much in the upcoming future that is going to be, or it's not going to be used for this purpose. So I guess this is my answer. It's so open formats which will ensure long time archiving capabilities, and for now this is only the IFC, which is the open and standardized file format for that. And if we take in the facilities management, again, what I can say is software vendors come and go. I'm not sure what's going to happen in the market. Maybe 15 years from now, there will be a third software vendor which is going to rule the world, and no one will know what we do actually now, what we did actually now. No one knows that. But if we are looking for open and standardized file format, we are pretty much covered.
So it's like Tesla, right? Oh, they kicked it into the market and they smashed a lot of cars and doing very well in the market suddenly. So that can, like, when you talk about the technology, it's even faster. If a vendor kicks in and they do something very innovative, they can actually dominate the market. That's true. So you never know. But one of the things that I would say is that when it comes to archiving, the main problem I see from my point of view, from my experience, is this. You tend to think once the project is ended, then you think about, okay, what should we do it? But instead, try to think from the beginning, how the end will be, how the life cycle will be, how you are going to approach it. And then when the end handover comes, you know exactly what to do and what you need to do. So if you don't think any of these and just blindly start modeling blindly, like without any purpose, you don't have any asset information requirements in place, you don't know what kind of end product is going to be, and even though you store IFC data, how much you can use it in the future, maybe if we can use it for some renovation bids and seeing the as-built, if you have ever done the as-built. So I mean, it really depends, because if you did a design project and things change on site and you didn't do as-built model because you didn't focus on asset information requirements, then how much you can trust this IFC as well after 20 years. So I would debate that. There's another question here. I can see one last question that we should, I think we can answer, is this. So regarding the open BIM but free BIM authoring tool, and here there was like one suggestion apart from the Blender BIM. And I would like to ask you personally, how do you see Blender BIM? And do you think that some of the other free softwares, free BIM authoring tools will kick in the market very soon?
Yes, that's a good question, especially because I didn't hear of Blender BIM before. Probably it's my bad knowledge previously. I believe that for certain types of projects, open source solutions can work for certain types of offices, especially for smaller ones or really specialized ones, because I guess that's pointing out that if a software is open source, it doesn't mean it's bad. there are a couple of problems with open source developments that if you find something when you are, for example, creating your projects and you are in a deadline, you are tied with contracts, and something occurs in the meantime in the software solution or in the solution that you are doing, which is blocking you to finish your job, you cannot blame the software vendor. You cannot ask for patches. You cannot ask for support if it's constantly freezing or just kicking you out. And I guess one of the main differentiators between the open source and the paid softwares is the constant support. That you are covered, you know that it's going to be constantly developed. It's not going to be at a point that one open source development is going to stop because the main developer left the company, or they didn't make any money and they just whole left the things out. So I guess that's why the reason open softwares will not conquer the BIM market, because we are talking about huge money. One of the biggest impacts in the world with most of the billionaire projects cannot be done just because of these reasons in open source developments. And I guess this is my answer for that. So I believe in a lot of cases, open solutions are a good way. So I like open solutions. For different aspects, but when it's coming to professional use, I think this is the place when you need to consider professional tools for the professional purposes, because you are at the end you are going to waste time, money, and energy, and you need to compare those.
I think it
can create your work.
I think it froze for the last 5 seconds. Can you just repeat the 5-10 seconds? You don't mind?
Yeah. So basically, it is, if it's a small project and you are working on smaller projects, which you believe that can be delivered in open softwares, then you can go for it. That's no problem. But when you are going to need professional tools, because of a professional contracts and professional environment, you cannot just step in with open source things, because this is not really reliable in the long term. And it's again risks what you bear.
I mean, it's costly. The ArchiCAD, I mean, if we talk about Bentley, if we talk about Revit, if we talk about Tekla, they're all very heavy and well-developed and so much deeply developed products. So in order to keep them developing, there is a lot of manpower and coding is needed. So that's why, like an open source cannot go at that speed of investment and, pushing the industry forward, because the paid product, like for example, ArchiCAD will be always leading, because it will change and adapt to the market depending on the needs. So there's a pandemic, there are certain things are the different workflows that needed. Support can be adapted in that way. Training can be adapted in that way. Like you are providing, which we discussed prior to this meeting, you're providing more and more consultation now because everyone is going digitalized. So you can do this with the for example Graphisoft or with the Blender BIM. You're very limited to on your own, and as you said, important projects will not be able to tackle in such an approach. And it takes a lot of time to learn as well. If you want to be a really good ArchiCAD user, from yourself most probably, you spend maybe 10 years and you're still learning some ArchiCAD features or some ArchiCAD workflows that you didn't think before.
Exactly, indeed.
All right. Thank you very much, Sabi. Thank you very much for coming to the BIM Talk. I really appreciate your time, and I think you really brought huge value to it. I'm really sorry again for Pantelis. I hope everything is good with his daughter. So I really wanted to see him over here as well. He has a really great experience and professional perspective in the BIM industry as well. So thank you very much for coming on board, and I really appreciate it on behalf of our audience.
Thank you very much for having me, and hopefully we can have another talk with Pantelis as well.